Have you ever had one of those moments where something like totally unexpected happens?
Uh-huh.
Like a canceled train or you take a wrong turn
Yeah.
and you end up finding this amazing opportunity you never would have encountered otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe it's more like looking back and thinking, if only I'd realized what that chance was at the time.
Right.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to be digging into today, that awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That moment where something surprising leads to a positive outcome or even a missed chance.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Serendipity Mindset, the art and science of creating good luck by Christian Busch.
Really interesting book.
And what we really want to do in this deep dive is figure out
Yeah.
how can you, listening right now, get better at not just encountering, but actually cultivating and then using those unexpected moments of good fortune in your own life.
Yeah, I think Bush has such a fascinating approach to this whole topic,
Yeah.
with his PhD from LSE and background in organizational management, sociology, and business. He's now teaching at NYU and LSE, focusing on something he calls serendipity levering, particularly in situations with limited resources and uncertainty.
I like that phrase, serendipity levering.
Yeah, he's really looked at how people achieve breakthroughs in those tough spots.
Now, when we hear good luck, it often sounds like something that just falls into your lap.
Right.
Like some people are just naturally lucky.
Yeah.
But Busch actually argues that the serendipity mindset
Mm-hmm.
is not about just passively waiting for things to happen. It's more of a way of seeing the world and engaging with it, and importantly, a skill we can all develop.
I think that's such a key point because it's not like wishing on a star or anything like that. It's more about creating conditions where these unexpected positive sparks are more likely to occur
Okay.
and then having the awareness to actually see them
Yeah.
when they do happen.
So Busch is encouraging us to move from just recognizing serendipity in hindsight, like, oh, that was lucky, to actually fostering it, developing some sort of foresight for these moments.
Yeah, exactly. It's about moving beyond just recognizing it after the fact to really understanding how to create it.
So let's break this down.
Okay.
When we talk about serendipity, what exactly does Busch mean by that?
Well, Busch defines serendipity as this unexpected good luck that arises from unplanned moments,
Okay.
combined with the positive choices we make in response to them.
Right.
He uses this phrase, finding the dots and connecting them, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah.
It's about seeing those potential links, the bridges, where others might just see random, unrelated events.
So it's almost like building a different type of awareness, like a
Yes.
heightened sensitivity to the unexpected.
Precisely. Think about how we usually react when something unexpected happens.
Mm.
It's often that primal automatic lizard brain, as Busch calls it.
Right.
Fight or flight kicks in when things don't go as planned.
Right.
But having a serendipity mindset
Yeah.
means learning to change that reaction.
But to meet the unexpected with curiosity and openness instead of that initial fear.
So it's not just about those random events themselves, but also what we actually do with them.
Exactly. Like we always hear those sayings, like
Yeah.
you make your own luck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's truth to that.
Yeah.
Success, I think, in many areas really hinges on this dance between chance events and our own deliberate actions.
Right.
And the real questions that Busch explores in the book are,
Yeah.
can we actually create the conditions where those positive coincidences are more likely to happen?
Okay.
And maybe even more importantly, can we train ourselves to spot those moments when they show up
Mm-hmm.
and then grab them and turn them into something good?
And this makes me think about all those stories we hear about.
Yes.
Like the ones where a seemingly random event leads to some huge breakthrough or opportunity.
Totally.
Are there any stories like that in Busch's book?
Oh, he has a ton. And they're really great examples.
Okay.
Take the eruption of that volcano in Iceland back in 2010. What was it called? Eyjafjallajökull, I think.
Eyjafjallajökull, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
That massive ash cloud, it shut down flights all across Europe.
Huge disruption.
A total nightmare for most people.
Right.
But for one guy named Nathaniel, who was in the middle of organizing a global conference in London,
Oh, wow.
it actually gave him a unique advantage.
Right.
People who were supposed to fly in were stuck.
Yeah.
And he ended up meeting someone who was already in London.
Okay.
And that connection turned out to be essential for getting his conference off the ground.
So what was a major disruption for so many
Right.
became a specific opportunity for him
Totally.
because of a connection made within that very disruption.
Yeah.
It's like finding a dot in the middle of all the chaos.
Exactly.
What other examples does Busch share?
Well, there's this great story about Nico Rose, an organizational psychologist from Germany.
Okay.
He was on a business trip in Boston and jet-lagged, ended up in the hotel gym early one morning.
Yeah.
And he bumped into Vladimir Klitschko.
Oh, wow, the boxer.
The former heavyweight champ, yeah.
Okay.
So Nico, being a fan, went back to his room to get his phone for a picture.
Of course.
And here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Klitschko's manager starts talking to him in German, and Nico overhears them, saying they're looking for a place to have breakfast.
Okay.
So Nico jumps in, tells them where to go, gets his photo, and they head off.
Nice.
But later, Klitschko's looking for the elevator, and Nico walks with him, which leads to a deeper conversation.
Wow.
And by the end of it, Klitschko invites Nico to introduce him at this corporate event where he was speaking.
No way.
And Nico mentions his upcoming book.
Yeah.
And Klitschko, out of the blue, offers to write the foreword.
That's incredible.
It is.
A small gesture of offering directions turned into this huge opportunity.
Right.
But was it really just random?
I think the lesson there isn't about specifically giving directions to celebrities in hotel gyms.
Right.
But more about the underlying principles.
Okay.
Nico was observant. He took initiative based on that chance meeting. And he stayed open to how the interaction unfolded.
Right. He didn't go in with some grand scheme.
Exactly. He was present and acted on the opportunities that came up.
That makes sense.
Busch also points out something we can all relate to, how relationships, even significant ones like the Obamas,
Yeah.
often start in unexpected ways.
Right.
Like Barack was a summer intern at Michelle's law firm, a total chance assignment.
Okay.
And Michelle wasn't even initially interested romantically.
Oh, interesting.
She saw him more as a protege.
Uh-huh.
But Obama's persistence in pursuing that connection
Yeah.
was crucial in turning that initial meeting into a long-lasting relationship.
So it's not just about the first encounter,
Right.
but also what you do after that initial spark.
Exactly. That fortitude, that willingness to keep engaging after the trigger is often key.
These stories seem to share a common thread.
Absolutely.
They're not just passive things that happen to us. It's about actively engaging with the unexpected.
Yeah.
So what are the key components Busch identifies in these serendipitous events?
He breaks it down into three main parts.
Okay.
First, there's the trigger, the encounter with something unexpected or unusual.
Right, like an event, a conversation, a meeting.
Anything that deviates from what you'd normally expect.
Got it.
Second is the connection, the crucial step of linking that trigger to something seemingly unrelated.
Okay.
And recognizing its potential value or opportunity.
Connecting those dots.
Exactly. Fortitude, the determination and persistence to actually chase that connection, to make something positive out of it.
Trigger, connection, and fortitude.
Yes.
It really highlights how we have an active role to play in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it sounds like being prepared, having the right mindset,
Yeah.
might increase those chances.
I think so. Serendipity often seems to favor what's called the prepared mind.
Yeah.
Even if you weren't specifically preparing for that exact opportunity,
Right.
Busch uses the example of combinatorial chemistry,
Okay.
where scientists intentionally create a ton of accidents,
Okay.
different chemical compounds,
Yeah.
and then systematically test them to see if they have any valuable properties.
Interesting.
It's about increasing the chances of a breakthrough by creating lots of these unexpected outcomes,
Got it.
and then being ready to spot the valuable one.
Right.
And in research, there are methods like grounded theory that are designed to uncover those surprising insights rather than just confirming what we already know.
So even in structured environments like a lab,
Right?
there's room for, and even a deliberate search for the unexpected. It's about being open to those potential triggers.
Yeah.
And this reminds me of something I read about the importance of identifying underlying interests in negotiations.
Yes.
And how that can lead to surprisingly positive results.
Absolutely.
Does that tie into this serendipity mindset?
That's a great connection.
Yeah.
Busch uses a negotiation exercise where students play the roles of an oil company trying to buy land from a gas station owner.
Okay.
The owner is asking for a really high price. And initially, the students often get stuck in this win-lose mindset, just arguing over the numbers.
Yeah.
But when they start digging into the underlying interests, what each side truly wants.
Right.
Unexpected solutions emerge.
Oh,
For example, the gas station owner might not actually need that huge sum.
okay.
Maybe he wants to retire comfortably.
Right.
Maybe he dreams of sailing with his friends.
Yeah.
And the high price was just what he thought he needed to achieve that.
Okay.
But once that deeper desire is out in the open,
Yeah.
students often come up with creative, serendipitous solutions,
What?
like the oil company sponsoring the sailing trip
Wow.
in exchange for some advertising on the property during a transition period.
So it becomes a win-win
Yeah.
that they wouldn't have found if they just focused on the initial price.
Exactly.
So it's about asking, what's really going on? What do people actually want?
Exactly. Curiosity and looking beyond the surface can unlock those opportunities.
Now, what about those times when serendipity might be right there, but we miss it completely?
Yeah, Busch talks about that too.
What does he say?
He gives this relatable example. Imagine someone spills coffee on you in a cafe.
Okay.
There's a brief connection.
Right.
Maybe you even find them kind of charming.
Uh-huh.
But nothing happens.
Yeah.
No one takes it further.
Right.
No contact info exchange.
And the moment's gone.
Exactly, that moment full of potential for an unexpected positive connection
Yeah.
just vanishes.
So what are the reasons we miss those opportunities?
Busch points out that we often fail to even notice the trigger,
Okay.
or we don't connect it to a possible good outcome,
Yeah.
or we simply lack the initiative to follow through.
It's like we're not even seeing those little moments.
Right. Yep.
And he mentions a company, I think it was an office furniture manufacturer in Salt Lake City,
Yeah.
that actually tried to cultivate this awareness
Right.
of serendipitous moments within their organization.
Yeah.
Interesting, like as a competitive edge.
Exactly. Suggesting it's a skill we can work on.
Wow, it makes you wonder how many of those small moments we miss every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like one thing that can stop us from seeing those triggers
Yeah.
is our own self-censorship.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you mean?
We often dismiss our unconventional ideas or perspectives
Okay.
because we're worried they won't be accepted or they don't fit in.
Yeah, we don't want to walk the boat.
Exactly. Busch describes this water cooler test
Okay.
where he would hang out in common areas of organizations just listening to conversations.
Mhm.
He often heard things like,
Yeah.
oh, there's Lily with another one of her crazy ideas. She doesn't get how we do things here.
Oh, right. We've always done it this way.
Exactly. So people become afraid to share anything new.
Yeah, for fear of judgment.
Yeah, and even when great discoveries are made,
Right.
they're often explained afterward to sound more intentional and conventional.
So they don't challenge the status quo.
Right.
And that fear of standing out, of questioning things,
Yes,
it can really stifle those initial sparks
absolutely.
that could lead to a serendipitous breakthrough.
And this can tie into what Busch calls hindsight rationalization.
Okay, what's that?
It's how we make sense of events after they've already happened.
Right.
We use it to create a story that often makes the outcome seem more predictable
Okay,
than it actually was.
I see.
To understand this, let's think about how we try to predict the future.
Okay.
You know, forecasts, especially in complex systems like the economy,
Right.
are often inaccurate.
Yeah.
Even sales forecasts for everyday products can be way off.
Right.
The truth is, many systems are just too complicated to model perfectly.
Okay.
And we can't anticipate every surprise twist and turn.
Right.
So in a way, all our plans are a kind of forecast,
Yeah,
and the actual results often turn out very differently.
because of those unexpected factors.
Exactly.
So we create these neat narratives looking back,
Mhm.
but the reality is much messier and full of surprises. So how does this connect to missing out on serendipity?
Well, hindsight rationalization can trick us into thinking that the path we took
Right.
was the only logical one,
Yeah.
and we might dismiss alternative paths
Yeah.
or those unexpected events
Right.
as unimportant or unlikely to have led to success.
Got it.
Busch gives this thought-provoking example.
Okay.
Imagine you're annoyed with the unreliable ATM near your house.
Yeah, I've been there.
You might complain to the bank,
Mm-hmm.
and they might focus on designing a better ATM machine.
Okay.
But what if there were no ATMs at all?
Right.
You wouldn't be stuck thinking about the machine itself.
Yeah.
You'd be thinking about the basic need.
Like, how do I get money to someone?
Exactly. How do I get 20 pounds to my friend?
Right.
This lack of existing infrastructure, like in Kenya,
Mm-hmm.
led to the rapid adoption of mobile banking through M-Pesa,
Okay.
which is now in many ways more advanced than systems in developed countries,
Interesting.
with all their ATMs and bank branches.
Right.
So the takeaway isn't to get rid of ATMs.
Yeah.
But to realize that sometimes not being limited by existing solutions or old ways of thinking can actually lead to more innovative
and serendipitous.
Exactly, more serendipitous outcomes.
That's a really good point.
And Busch also highlights the importance of building on other people's ideas rather than just competing with them.
How does that fit into this?
It's about connecting those dots, both for ourselves and for others.
Okay.
He tells the story of Shah Wasman. She's a successful businesswoman. When she was at LSE, working at McDonald's, she won a contest to interview Chris Eubank.
Wow, the boxer.
Yeah, the British boxing champion.
Cool.
They hit it off, and Eubank, unexpectedly, offered her a job managing his PR.
What? Even though she had no experience in that?
No experience, but she took the chance.
Oh, wow.
And went on to build a very successful career in boxing PR.
Amazing. So it wasn't her plan at all.
Right, but she was open to the unexpected opportunity.
And it changed her whole trajectory.
Totally.
So often it's other people who help us connect the dots.
Absolutely.
Now, Busch also talks about intent and what he calls loose ends.
Yes.
How do those relate to cultivating serendipity?
Well, while serendipity is about the unexpected, having a general sense of purpose of what interests you can act as a guiding force. He talks about Paul Polman, the former CEO of Unilever. He did all sorts of projects throughout his career. But he always had this clear mission.
What was that?
To help those in need. He didn't have a strict career plan. But his overarching intention allowed serendipitous opportunities to guide his actions.
Interesting.
And Layla Yarjani, who co-founded Little Bridge and co-chairs UNICEF Next Gen Europe.
Wow, okay.
She emphasizes following your curiosity and a real desire to help others rather than rigidly sticking to some preset career goals.
So it's about having broader aspirations?
Yeah, like a North Star.
That can help you navigate those unexpected events.
And this connects to the idea of equifinality. Which basically means there are many paths to the same goal.
I see.
This encourages us to take action, even when we're unsure of the exact route.
Or we're afraid of setbacks.
Exactly.
So it's not getting discouraged if your initial path is blocked.
Yeah.
There might be other ways to get there.
Exactly.
And there's also this concept of winging it.
Right.
That Busch brings up through Oliver Burkeman's perspective. How does that fit in?
Well, Burkeman argues that everyone is always winging it to some degree. It's just that when public figures mess up or big projects fail, it becomes big news. It highlights those moments when those in charge are clearly improvising. But Burkeman suggests this is actually a fundamental part of life.
Interesting.
Even leaders like Emmanuel Faber of Danone have said they prefer trusting a vision and taking action over relying on rigid plans.
In our rapidly changing world.
Exactly.
So excessive planning might be less effective. And having a clear vision becomes a more adaptable North Star. For their teams.
And this often involves being vulnerable, admitting limitations.
Which can actually build trust.
And
get more people on board.
Absolutely.
So embracing uncertainty and being willing to adapt becomes a key part of cultivating serendipity. Because you're too rigid. You might miss those unexpected turns that lead to something better.
Exactly.
Now, Busch also discusses how our view of the world impacts our ability to experience serendipity.
He really stresses that how we see the world is shaped from a young age. And as parents, educators, even friends, we have a big influence on how others interpret events.
Especially children.
Busch shares this father's advice, which was, whatever happens with the right attitude, we can deal with it.
That's good advice.
It's about having a proactive mindset, believing you have some control over outcomes.
And that's essential for embracing the unexpected.
Totally. And he also uses the example of the sandbox. Initially, it was supposed to be a series of global meetings, but they had to change plans because of a crisis. But by being open to that shift, they ended up creating a thriving community based on local meetings, which was arguably even more impactful.
So sometimes those unexpected changes can lead to something even better.
And Busch argues for educational reform. That goes beyond just teaching technical skills and focuses on cultivating this serendipity mindset.
Teaching people how to recognize and act on those unexpected opportunities.
Exactly. It's about teaching people how to influence their own luck.
So It's about fostering resilience and adaptability from a young age
Absolutely.
and teaching people to see challenges not just as roadblocks,
Right.
but as potential detours towards something new and valuable.
I think a key ingredient in this is curiosity.
Yeah,
Being willing to explore things even if you don't see the immediate relevance.
that's interesting.
Busch talks about someone who turns down a job offer.
Okay.
It doesn't seem right at the time.
Right.
But then their circumstances change a few weeks later,
Yeah.
and that same job becomes perfect.
Wow.
But if they hadn't paid attention to that initial conversation, they would
Right.
miss the chance.
So it's about keeping an open mind,
Exactly.
even to those things that seem irrelevant at first.
Yeah, he really emphasizes that a curious, open, questioning mind is key to discovering and creating serendipity.
Right.
He even mentions the Little Prince
Oh, yeah.
and the importance of asking questions.
Even the simple ones.
Exactly.
Curiosity can really open up unexpected doors.
It can.
And it sounds like asking the right questions is just as crucial as just being curious.
Busch introduces the 5 Whys method from Toyota, developed by Sakichi Toyota, the founder of Toyota Industries.
Right.
When faced with a problem,
Yeah.
he advocated asking why 5 times in a row
5 times.
to get to the root cause.
Okay.
Each why digs deeper, often revealing underlying issues and potential solutions.
So it's about not just scratching the surface,
Yeah.
but really getting to the heart of the matter.
And this can apply to all sorts of challenges in life.
Like work issues, relationships,
Exactly.
and that deeper understanding
Yeah,
can create space for those serendipitous insights.
it can.
Busch also talks about moving beyond just defining problems
Yes.
to what he calls cultivating opportunity spaces.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, traditional problem solving often follows this linear model.
Okay.
You start with a clear problem statement.
Right.
This can work for well-structured problems with obvious solutions.
But what about the messier problems?
Right. Many real-world challenges, especially in uncertain environments,
Yeah.
are what we call ill-structured problems.
Right.
They're not easy to define up front.
Right.
Busch draws on Herbert Simon's work here.
Okay.
Defining those ill-structured problems too early
Yeah.
can limit the potential for serendipity.
Nice. So
Instead, he suggests creating opportunity spaces,
how do you do that?
using methods like iterative problem formulation
Okay.
and rapid prototyping, like
Interesting.
they do at IDEO, the design firm.
Right.
These approaches embrace experimentation and feedback.
All
You develop and test rough prototypes quickly,
Uh-huh.
and the feedback you get informs the next version.
So it's a constant cycle of refinement.
Exactly.
And this recognizes that initial ambiguity can be a source of creativity.
Yeah.
And those deep insights often come from recognizing new patterns, curiosity, making connections,
Yeah.
and even what Busch calls creative desperation.
Okay.
So by shifting from rigidly defining problems
Right.
to exploring these opportunity spaces,
All right.
we can increase those chances of breakthroughs. That makes sense. It's a more dynamic and open process
Definitely.
than the traditional linear way of solving problems.
Yeah.
And it seems like serendipity often happens
Mhm.
when we see a problem and a potential solution
Right.
at the same time.
Busch describes serendipity as often occurring
Yeah.
when we simultaneously see a problem and a viable solution.
Okay.
And once we make that connection, we can evaluate it against our situation.
Yeah.
And if it's an improvement,
Right.
serendipity turns into opportunity.
I like that.
Innovation experts like Eric von Hippel and Jorg von Crow
Okay.
talk about problem landscapes and solution landscapes. And serendipity often happens when we find a link
Yeah.
between a point in the problem landscape
Okay.
and a seemingly unrelated point in the solution landscape.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine a parent sees a stable-looking bicycle baby carrier.
Okay.
They might not have even realized they needed one,
Right.
but suddenly they connect it with their desire to cycle with their child.
Right.
It's the perfect solution.
Right. It solves a problem they didn't even realize they had.
Exactly. And going to industry events with an open mind, not just looking for specific things,
Yeah.
can also lead to these unexpected solutions.
So it's about being aware of the challenges around us
Right.
and the potential solutions that might be out there,
Yeah.
even if they don't seem like a match at first.
It's in that unexpected intersection
Yeah.
that serendipity often shows up.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive into the serendipity mindset.
It's a fascinating topic.
It's definitely changed how I think about luck.
Yeah, the key message is
Yeah.
serendipity isn't some magical force.
Right.
It's a way of thinking, a way of interacting with the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a set of skills you can develop.
So as you go through your week,
Yeah,
we encourage you to think about these ideas.
absolutely.
Consider how you can be more aware of those triggers,
Mm.
how you can practice making connections between seemingly unrelated things
Right.
and how to develop the resilience
Yes.
to pursue those opportunities when they pop up.
And here's a final thought.
Okay.
How might actively cultivating this serendipity mindset
Yeah.
lead to unexpected positive changes in both your personal and professional life?
In the weeks and months to come.